Good evening. It is Thursday the 22nd of August and we are going to have a brief little video to talk about the development of Storm Lilian, which has been named by the UK Met Office earlier on today and is likely to bring a period of potentially disruptive winds across parts of North Wales and particularly northwest England, but also the whole of northern England should be at risk or should be aware there is a risk of some potentially damaging winds coming from Storm Lilian tomorrow morning. As this, it's going to be over relatively quickly. It's a fast-moving little system, and we'll spend a little bit of time looking at it in terms of its development and which are the main areas to be aware of. So if we look at the visible satellite imagery this evening from EUMETSAT, this is the development which is going to become Storm Lilian. Not a huge amount to show for it on this particular visible satellite imagery. You can see some stratiform cloud here coming up across Ireland and stretching back towards the southwest approaches. And if we look at the radar picture, we can see that there is rain already streaming forward of that system across Ireland in particular this evening. And if we look back at the water vapour imagery or the air mass imagery, we can see the main players that are going to come together to be Storm Lilian. So one thing to say that this is not a big autumn or winter depression like we see a little bit later on in the year. It is a potent little depression for August, but it is not, it's not a 950, 960 millibar low that is going to bring widespread gales, and we're not going to see rapid cyclogenesis associated with this because it's not the time of the year for those kind of things to come into play. So we've got the kind of foretell signs of a development taking place here. We've got the kind of warm advection beginning to spread northwards across Ireland, and we've got this bright red area here you can see on the air mass imagery. This is the PV maximum, so this is where you've got greater spin within the jet stream. The jet stream is lying in a very zonal pattern like this across the Atlantic, and there isn't a great big upper trough, there isn't a big dip in the flow. So normally in the autumn and winter we would see a bigger dip like that in the flow, which would lock into the low and deepen it much more rapidly. So you don't get that kind of thing at this time of the year. But nonetheless, we've got a fairly potent jet stream coming eastwards from the United States, and a lot of that has had the injection of tropical energy from the former Hurricane Ernesto, which would affected us over the last couple of days in terms of a band of rain. So this PV maximum here is going to catch up with this wave depression here, which is kind of more at the low levels in the surface, and this upper level feature here is going to move in, and that's going to engage with the low as it moves across northern England. And we can see that on the GFS model field. So this is the 500 millibar flow at 6 o'clock this evening GMT, and you can see that red area, that PV maximum out to the west of Ireland. And if we move the sequence forward, we can see how there isn't, again, as I said, a big kink in the flow to the west of Ireland, so there isn't a big upper trough that's going to engage this, but we can see that PV maximum moves in across northern England and then out into southern Scotland. And if we look at the 200 millibar flow that's associated with that, so up at the jet stream levels, you can see that embryonic low at the moment is sat just about underneath the middle of the jet stream. So this bright red area here is the jet maximum, and you've got winds in here of about 130 knots, and it's lying underneath the jet stream. So when you as a depression are lying underneath the jet stream, you are developing, but you're not developing to your full extent. You can only do that when you are in an area of divergence, and divergence in the jet stream is at the upper levels, and you can imagine this as being like a chimney where you have a very small area of very strong winds or upflow, and at the top of that the air then spreads out rapidly in multiple directions, and when you as a low pressure area are in that area, you have maximum divergence, you have maximum air spreading out at high altitudes, and that is where then the air is forced in at the bottom, and then you get your deepening of the low because the air is forced to move in at a greater and greater speed. So as the low tracks northwards and develops over Ireland or to the southwest of Ireland this evening, and then moves up towards northern England, you'll see that the jet pattern changes, so that by tomorrow morning the low is going to be somewhere over the Irish Sea, and you can see then it is in this area of the jet stream. So we have stronger winds to the southwest of it, and we have this air flowing out to the north and to the east. So we have an area there of more increased divergence. It's not a fantastic area of divergence, but it is a better area of divergence for that area of low pressure to develop somewhat, and which is what it does. And the models respond by deepening the area of low pressure as it moves across northern England tomorrow. And we call this region the left exit of the jet, and the left exit region is where lows will typically deepen because the air is spreading out in multiple different in a divergent pattern. So as we look at the surface areas, if we look at the area of low pressure as it comes east tomorrow, it's going to move across, this is the French model I've chosen first, but you can see the low pressure comes in across Ireland, it moves into the Irish Sea and then moves across northern England and out into the North Sea. It moves pretty quickly, so we go from midnight tonight over Ireland, and by tomorrow morning at just after breakfast time, it's out into the North Sea. So it's moving at quite a pace as we go through tomorrow morning. But unfortunately, it is going to, as I said, it is going to deepen. It's also going to move across an area which is prone to topographical enhancements from the strong winds. So we have the strong winds coming through the Cheshire Gap. So we have a funneling between the North Wales Mountains and the Pennines. We have the Lake District coming into effect, and we have the Pennines coming into effect. So these areas are these kind of hilly areas are going to get in the way of this depression, and that is where we get funneling of the winds. And also it is August, so there is obviously it is rather unusual for the time of year to be getting such strong winds. So the Met Office have issued a weather warning for that, and as I said, a yellow warning is in place for those strong winds. If we have a look at the deterministic GFS versus the ensemble, these are the GFS tracks for the depression or for the storm Lilian tomorrow morning. So you can see there's very good agreement now from the GFS and its ensemble of the low coming in across the far north of England and the south of Scotland. There are various depths in here. Each of these numbers represents a potential future for this area of low pressure tomorrow from around, I think, if you can see better than me, around 978 millibars to around 988 millibars. So there's a still a 10 millibar difference in the ensembles, but the solutions are very tightly clustered around the far north of England and southern Scotland, and that indeed boards out as well on the UK. This is the UK global model in terms of its solution, and that agreed pretty well as well with the UKV model or the UK higher resolution model. So there's good agreement where Storm Lilian is going to go. There remains a little bit more uncertainty as to the strength of the wind, but that is also coming into line with the latest model guidance. So this is the midday Arome model from the French Meteo France, and again we can see the core of the strongest winds coming up through the Irish Sea this evening. So strong winds overnight across the west coast of Wales, down through the Celtic Sea. But the really strong winds coming into Anglesey and then across the Irish Sea into the far northwest of Wales, and then picking up that funnel effect effectively around parts of Lancashire down through Manchester, possibly a little bit further south as well. I wouldn't want to rule out coming down part of the M6 as well into parts of Derbyshire and the Peak District as well through to tomorrow morning as well. I think the 89 miles an hour here is probably a little bit extreme, but certainly we are at risk of seeing gusts reach I think around the 80 miles an hour mark. Not going to be too unexpected. I think, you know, we can see there on the Apogee model, the French model, again 81 miles an hour, and those stronger winds because of the funneling towards Manchester, obviously a major metropolitan area, but we could well see those gusts extending towards the Pennines, the Trans-Pennine routes, the A1, the M62, the A59, potentially affected by that. So if you are in this part of the world tomorrow morning, do be careful, because there is going to be quite a lot of strong winds around. There will be obviously the trees and the leaves are in full leaf at the moment, being what's supposed to be summer still. And as I said, we are going to see some potential damage, I think, from these winds in that area during tomorrow morning. As I said, good agreement from the major models. I don't see anything particularly that's standing out in any one model. We've got good agreement around 80, perhaps just a little bit over 80 miles an hour from the main models. I think the area from kind of Morecambe Bay down through Blackpool, Fleetwood, down towards the Wirral, and then, as I said, funneling through the Cheshire Gap, down towards the Peak District at main risk, and then we've got the lee gustiness to the east of the Pennines from Leeds, Sheffield, up through the A1 and across up towards parts of Northumberland as well. As that low exit, it's possible that areas around to the northeast of Newcastle could also get a brief spell of pretty strong winds. The UKV from the Met Office is intimating that over parts of northeast England as we go as the low exits. The other models not quite so keen on that, so we'll have to bear that in mind. But somewhere like the RAF station Brisley Wood may well get a fairly strong gust during tomorrow morning up in Northumberland. So again, the whole of the north of England really should be aware of these strong winds developing through Storm Lilian. And this is the Met Office area for that's been issued for a yellow wind warning. Again, covers most of the north of England. As I said, if you're just to the northeast of this, in this area here, or you're just to the south around Stoke, be prepared for some potential strong winds tomorrow. Don't take this area that literally. As I said, it's best to be prepared just to the north of it and just to the south of it. As I said, risk of some pretty strong winds. Maximums probably around the 80 miles an hour mark. Probably not too much risk of anything higher than that, but certainly for the time of year, it is going to be pretty windy. Elsewhere across the UK, there is going to be some gusty winds, some strong winds, and some heavy rain pushing eastwards, particularly through everyone's going to get a period of rain and some gusty winds, not very August-like, and that should clear out of the way relatively quickly. But those in the south and particularly the southeast are going to see a return to some pretty wet weather as we go through tomorrow night and into Saturday, and that is because we're going to see a wave develop on the front as it clears eastwards, and that's going to bring a period of rain back across the south of England. So we can see here again some pretty wet weather returning to much of England and Wales. So this feature here has trended into a much more active feature over the last few runs, and it does now look like much of England and Wales, particularly the southeastern half of England and Wales, is going to get pretty wet as we go through tomorrow night and into Saturday. Anyway, I hope everyone stays safe tomorrow in the north of England, and I will speak to you again soon. Thanks for watching.